Imagine walking into a restaurant, just hoping for a warm meal, only to be greeted with cold hostility. That's exactly what happened to an elderly black woman who simply wanted to enjoy her day. Instead, she faced the unexpected, a waiter who blatantly refused to serve her. The reason? Prejudice that seemed to have no place in such a setting. What the waiter didn't know, though, was who this woman truly was. Behind her calm and dignified demeanor was a story that would soon turn the situation upside down. She wasn't just any customer. She was the mother of the restaurant's owner, and her son. He was about to make an unforgettable entrance. This moment of injustice quickly became a lesson in humility and respect. Stay tuned to see how one act of discrimination led to a powerful turn of events that no one in the room saw coming. The waiter, young and overly confident, dismissed the elderly woman without a second thought. His tone was sharp, his words laced with impatience, as he claimed the table was reserved and she wasn't welcome. Other customers glanced over, some whispering, but no one intervened. The woman, calm yet visibly hurt, quietly asked for a manager, but the waiter only laughed, brushing her off as if she didn't matter. What he failed to notice, though, was a man watching from the corner of the room, a man whose expression grew colder with every word the waiter spoke. That man was the restaurant owner, and he was taking in every detail of the unfolding scene. This wasn't just business to him. This was personal. Still unnoticed, he decided to let the situation play out a little longer, waiting for the right moment to step in and set things straight. The woman sat quietly, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her scarf. She wasn't looking for trouble, just a simple meal in a place that had always felt like home. But today, home felt different. The waiter, now emboldened by her silence, crossed his arms and smirked as if he had won some unspoken battle. He even began to loudly complain to another staff member, making sure everyone around could hear. In the kitchen, some employees exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the owner had a strong sense of fairness and would never tolerate this behavior. But they also knew the waiter, new to the team, had no idea who the woman really was. Meanwhile, the owner stayed in the shadows, watching as customers whispered, some clearly uncomfortable. He could feel the weight of the moment. Knowing what was coming next would leave a lasting impression on everyone involved. The restaurant grew quieter as the tension thickened. The elderly woman sat there, composed but with a sadness in her eyes that spoke volumes. She glanced at the menu, her hands steady now, as if reminding herself that she belonged here. Meanwhile, the waiter grew louder, his dismissive attitude escalating. He began speaking to other customers about how rules are rules, trying to justify his actions. A few patrons looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, but still, no one stepped forward. In the corner, the owner clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He had heard enough. The kitchen staff peeked nervously from behind the counter, realizing something big was about to happen. Still unnoticed, the owner stepped closer, his shadow falling over the scene. The waiter, oblivious, continued his tirade, his voice echoing in the room. Everyone could feel it. Something was about to change, and no one knew what would happen next. Just as the owner was about to step forward, the elderly woman quietly stood up. Her movements were graceful but firm, commanding attention without a single word. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. She looked at the waiter, her voice steady yet filled with quiet power. "You don't know me," she said, her tone calm, but cutting through the silence like a knife. The waiter smirked, clearly unfazed. "No, ma'am, and I don't need to," he replied, his arrogance on full display. But then the doors to the kitchen swung open, and an older chef walked out. His face lit up the moment he saw the woman, and without hesitation he rushed over, greeting her warmly. "It's been too long," he exclaimed, his voice breaking the awkward silence. The waiter froze, his smirk fading. Confused murmurs spread through the room as the staff and customers started piecing things together. The waiter stood frozen as the elderly chef continued to chat with the woman, his tone filled with warmth and respect. The shift in energy was palpable. Suddenly, the owner stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying an edge that silenced even the faint whispers. The waiter, realizing who the man was, stammered, trying to justify his actions. I thought she wasn't allowed to sit here. I didn't know." He trailed off, his confidence crumbling. The owner turned to his mother, his expression softening. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked, and the room collectively gasped. The waiter's face turned pale as he pieced everything together. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know," he began, but the owner raised a hand, cutting him off. "That's the problem," he said. "You didn't even try to know." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would happen next. Then, turning to his mother, the owner asked with a smile, "Should we serve him a lesson or just dessert?" Her laughter broke the tension, and in that moment, the lesson had already been served. The room erupted in soft chuckles, easing the tension as the elderly woman smiled at her son. "I think he's learned enough for today," she said kindly, her words carrying more weight than any punishment could. The owner nodded and turned back to the waiter. "We all make mistakes," he said, his tone firm but fair. "But in this restaurant, we treat everyone with dignity. That's the standard, no exceptions." The waiter, humbled and visibly shaken, apologized sincerely to the woman, who accepted it with grace. The staff and customers watched as the owner personally escorted his mother to a table, ensuring she received the care she deserved. By the end of the day, the restaurant felt different, warmer, more united. For those who witnessed the moment, it wasn't just a lesson in kindness, but a reminder that respect always has a place at the table.